Chicks Talking Shift, and we have had the most amazing conversation about change and transformation. And we've talked about it from perspectives that we don't usually see. And one of the things that I loved best is that Angel shares from her book, Dedicated to Destiny, the 6 stages of transformation that are our roadmap to help us understand what we're going through and how we get to that next place.
And one thing that occurred to me while I was writing those books is to understand how change shows up so that we can learn to anticipate it and adapt with ease and grace. And we cover all of that in this conversation. Enjoy.
My favorite is the dessert. So if you hang out to the end of the video, you'll see some fun bloopers and outtakes that you'll really enjoy.
The dessert. It's awesome. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy. Hi again, everybody, and welcome back to Chicks Talking Shift. I'm Angel.
And I'm Alecia.
Hello, Alecia.
Hello, Angel.
Hello. Looking good.
Yes, you as well. Yeah, what are we talking about today?
Well, here's the deal. We are going through this massive shift, and it caught us a little bit by surprise, little unexpected changes in our lives, little disruption. And it kind of feels like the world didn't let us know that it was decided to go on a course correction. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a minute, you're, we are changing. Oh, okay. I heard about this, but I do see that you were serious now. You know, we're on this massive course correction, and we are all feeling like we are up Shifts Creek without a paddle, right? And so once you and we were having this conversation about a course correction, correcting the course of our lives, because we've gotten off. Before COVID, I mean, if we're going to compare then versus now, there are a lot of things I think a lot of people are realizing, including myself. I could speak for myself, and that is what wasn't working. What was not working. And so now we're finding that it's a time of integration. It's a time to integrate parts of what we liked about our life before the pandemic, which has been a huge catalyst for our transformation, and take those, but also releasing some other parts and integrating all kinds of things. And so this conversation, I'm extremely passionate about, as you know. I am excited about it, and it's going to be a little bit about the process of how we correct our course and take action, because right now, it's not even an option to learn to adapt to change. What we've been experiencing in 2020 is, I think, just a little sampling of what is to come. And to be prepared for this in a way where we got to start talking about it. People have to start talking about this shift and do what we're doing, or at least join our conversation to spark some guidance and direction and help us through it as we're going through it. So that's what this conversation is about. And it's about change and adapting to change, essentially. So when we talk about change, Alecia, what comes to mind? How do you view change?
Change for me typically has a real positive connotation, because I generally initiate it. I like change. I feel like I'm a change agent. And so there's a piece, and I'm always self-excavating and just kind of, working my process and trying to refine myself as a human being and as a soul having this experience. So for me, change is usually positive, but I think it's probably because I initiate it. And so when we've talked about change, I became aware of the fact that I have a tendency to think about it two different ways. Generally, the first place I go, which is for myself, and it's a positive thing because I initiated it. And I've been, in my life, over the last few decades, there's not been a lot of change that has been forced on me. And so when I think about things like the pandemic and that sort of thing, all of a sudden I realized that a lot of times outside of myself, I have a tendency to see change as being something a bit heavier and negative, like it's happening to me, and almost even some a victimization, almost a feeling when it gets superimposed on you and it wasn't something that you initiated. So yeah, when I think about change, that's how I think about it. And I think about change as being rearranged,
Mm.
rearranged, rerouted, reorganized, and and the process itself is one thing and what the circumstances are, but it's like anything else, right? It's how we embrace it and the view that we choose to use through whatever lens we choose to perceive it through. It's so interesting to me because several times this week, this has been a theme in my week for some reason, that I've had different situations where I've been talking to somebody, and there's a phrase that I like that says a lot about my personal philosophy in life, and that is, often the pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional.
Mm.
And the suffering comes from how we choose to view whatever our circumstances are. So it's been interesting that that theme has come up for me several times, this week. So that's how I think of change. How do you think of change because look, you're the transformation coach, you've written the books. There is something about change for you. I've learned so much from you because you've been through a lot of changes in the last 5 or 6 years. And so it's been a dance partner for you. And there are aspects of change that you have worn, that you have been, that you understand on a different level than I do. And so when we talk about it, what does that mean for you?
Change is something that does not happen to us. And I'm extracting that from what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Change is always something that happens for us. And it can be difficult at times. Absolutely. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. But change is always worthwhile. When you think about any change that has occurred in your life, it's worthwhile change. It has benefits attached to it. And going back to what you said about the perspective, it's how you look at it. But really, it's a lot depends on how the change shows up in your life.
Mm.
It can show up four ways. And in my book, I refer to these as the 4 E's.
Mm-hmm.
An event. Okay, let's think about a marriage. That's an event that changes lives. A divorce certainly changes lives. Life, a birth of a child, a death of a loved one. All these changes are events. The pandemic is an event. And so when you think of these events in your life being a catalyst for change, and so here, I'm going to just put myself out there because I've studied numerology and have been absolutely fascinated by it. And once it was introduced to me and the validation of all the paths that I've taken, I chose. I mean, I chose this everything. That gives you a whole new perspective of change. Like you chose these turning points. You planted them there so that we can evolve. That's why we're all here on this planet. But we'll get into that another day.
But let me say, as one who has been a recipient of your knowledge and intuition around numerology, you're really good. It's amazing to me some of the things that you shared about me. It's like, oh my gosh. And this was years ago.
Yes.
This was years ago when we didn't even know each other as well as we do now. You amaze me with what you know about numerology.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, it changed me. I've never had anybody ever. And at one time I was writing articles in Conscious Community magazine and doing a lot of numerology readings. And I'd never had anybody say, oh, that's not true.
Right.
Or that does not fit me or my life. I mean, it's always been, whoa. Yeah. So I know that we choose a lot of this stuff on a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
And, because we're born with this veil, we forgot all that stuff. Numerology is just a little glimpse into some of that stuff. But
It's a bit of a decoder ring, isn't it?
yes,
It's like a decoder ring. Yeah.
tool. It is a tool, and it's been around. Numerology has been a practice for, whew, it goes back to ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so events is one way change occurs. The next way change shows up in our lives is through an encounter. And an encounter with another person. It could be an encounter with, it could be in a movie where you resonate with that character and it literally holds the mirror up for you. You identify with some aspect of the character in the movie, or it's an encounter. You're having an encounter. When you meet somebody, and it could be a boss who gives you feedback, and it could be delivered as criticism and not maybe positive feedback. That's an encounter because it causes you to go, what? What? No. Because truth is absurd when first heard, right? Typically. So usually these encounters are change is there to wake us up. These little awakenings, these are just little awakenings we planted for ourselves along the way. And so an encounter is another way through our relationships. It's when the mirror is literally held up and we can see ourselves, and then that change occurs. An encounter with somebody else, when you admire somebody else, typically it's something in yourself that is not being expressed. And so when you admire something and that changes you. This puts change into motion. An encounter, you meet the love of your life, that encounter changes your life, changes your path. So an event, an encounter, an epiphany. Have you ever had an epiphany?
Yeah. That changes everything.
we can't even describe what an epiphany is.
Oh, the
I,
aha moment. Yeah, it's about as good as it gets for me. Aha moment.
it is. And it is an aha moment, but it's the realization. It's like an instant shift in your belief system. And that's really the epiphany. It's like something you believed before, all of a sudden that there is a different light and a twist, and you see it through different lenses, and now it's like, oh, I see it differently. And so your belief about something changes, whatever that is, but it is woohoo, aha moment, powerful. That is instant transformation.
Right. Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have change where it's essential. The fourth E is essential. So you go to the doctor and the doctor says, huh, you better quit smoking. Or, this is not going to have a good outcome for you. And so you make that change. You make an intention about making that change. Or you get out of a toxic relationship where your spirit is dying, and for your highest self, that's not a healthy place for you to be. It's essential. So anything having to do with physical, emotional well-being, mental health, and spiritual well-being, those changes are essential that you make, and transformation starts being put into motion at that point. So those are the ways that it shows up in our life. And understanding just that, we can learn to anticipate when change will occur. Mm-hmm. Because if there's an event coming up in your life, oh, I'm getting married, that is also change. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative.
Right.
But that your life is changed, and start preparing yourself for that transformation that you're going to go through, whether you're aware of it or not, and prepare for that. Prepare for the transformation is going to feel like when you have that first baby, and how that kind of rocks your world a little bit. It's understanding how it shows up creates the awareness that change is emotion. It's like, oh, whew, okay, now.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. There is no way in hell that I could have run down anything like that. And it all made total sense to me. Those 4 E's, I never thought about how change comes about. So that totally makes sense to me. All of those make sense to me. Amazing. That's excellent stuff. That's what I'm talking about. You're the transformation coach. You get change on a level that I don't get it.
I mean, this came through me while I was going through massive, massive, massive change in my life. So I would love to take credit for it, but I can't. Yeah. I really can't. Several years back, going through, I don't even know where to start. I guess the financial crisis kicked it off. Mm-hmm. Then a move across the country, then a divorce, then learning to be a single mom, then taking a huge career path turn, which turned out to be my dream job, which was awesome. So there was good changes happening in the middle of all this. But with that job came travel, extensive travel. And so there's stress associated with that, plus being a single mom and traveling, and lots of transformation at once. And then my mom passed away, and my stepdad had passed away, and I moved back across the country for the dream job and lost the job. It was A little bit too much. Just a little bit.
You're talking about it and I can barely breathe.
More than one person can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk about the top stressors, the top 10 stressors
Oh
in a human experience. I think I checked all the boxes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I realized that for most people, change would be solemn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not something you're hurrah, rah, rahing through, unless it's change that you have, that you've created, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but that you've initiated. Change that you've initiated feels a little bit different than change that's been forced upon you. And that's what I realized the difference is for me when I talk about change. When I talk about change for myself, it's always change that I initiate. And so since I don't have much change and haven't experienced much trauma on me since childhood, I don't have that solemnness around job losses, the loss of children, people in the hospital, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's when I started journaling. And that's when I started really revisiting my yoga practice every day. And it was through journaling and expressing what I was going through. I kept writing that, but that's where the 6 stages came from. I realized, oh no, I'm going through this release thing again. Okay, well, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm seeing a pattern here. And that's where it came through. And they were put into gear the 6 stages of transformation, essentially, kind of go through the process.
Right.
First one is realize. And then you got to release, let go of what doesn't serve you, what you don't want to take with you. So, what don't we want to bring with us into the next normal?
Right.
And then rebound. All change does require some grieving. It is a loss of something, something's being released for us, or we're releasing a part of ourselves. But there's a grieving and letting go.
Right.
And that's also part of the change process. And so the rebound stage is very, very important. A lot of self-care necessary. And then once you start coming out of that and healing and kind of balancing everything out, then you step in the reinventing stage, which is fun.
Yeah.
But you stumble and fall and you get back up and try it again. Say, nope, that's not who I am anymore, or what have you. And you make another choice. And from there you resurrect into that highest self, the highest vision you have yourself. And the last and final stage is respond. And that is, what's the point of getting this far when you can't help somebody else? So you have a responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. To help others. Get through the process. So I guess that's my take on change. Plenty nights where I was awakened at 3 a.m. with thoughts and insights. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll write that down. I'll put it in my phone or I'll write it down. And then more, they would just keep coming. I'm like, okay, next thing you know, I'm up writing the book, at 3 a.m. for hours.
Yeah.
Hours when things just started flowing through. And so I didn't know it then, but I'm gonna get emotional. It's just occurring to me. That book was written, and I didn't understand why. Like, what makes me an expert at change? And I'm writing about it, but it's written for now. And I can't tell you how many times I have gone back and revisited my own book to go through this process again, to be reminded of some of this stuff, right? Like, oh yeah, transformation again. But at least I know kind of where I am on the path of transformation, where I've been and where I'm going. So it's kind of a powerful powerful thing. It's like an internal GPS system that you always talk about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a natural cycle. But becoming aware of it, it speeds it up, speeds up the process with that awareness.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why you reference the book again, isn't it? Is because, I mean, it's a guidebook. It's like what you were talking about, that when you know change is coming, you can prepare for it, and it kind of makes the path a little bit easier. And so having a guidebook to be able to recognize where you are, at this particular stage, even if change blindsides you as you're going through it, those things still hold. So for you, I hear you say that sometimes you even go back to your own book. It's like a stabilizer, isn't it? It's like, yes, this is where I am now. And so when you feel like you've got a bit of a grasp on it, it makes it easier to navigate. It's the same as consciousness, and it's the same as detaching as an observer. These are the things that help make that step by step by step, even though you're still walking through the muck, and even though it's still slow, it makes it a little bit easier. And even if the feet are heavy, it lightens the heart, doesn't it? And it also helps control the monkey mind a little bit, because it's like, okay, now you can be quiet because we know what this is. We have a sense of what's next, even if you don't know the details, that it makes it a little bit easier. Anything's easier with a map or a guidebook.
And it's either by choice or by chance. You choose change, or it occurs by chance, happenstance, So the way it shows up will impact the transformation process.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if it's an event like the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit different because it was unexpected.
Right.
Usually, unexpected change hits us a little bit differently than when we're intentionally
Absolutely
change. So it's understanding a little bit more about change and the dynamics involved, because it's not slowing down.
No, it's not slowing down.
I think we just are getting a sample.
Yeah.
Of what's to come. And so I am feeling stronger than ever about right now. It is so essential for us to learn to adapt to change. And here's the other realization I had. It's not even learning it, because I believe that flowing through change is part of our nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's a natural gift that we're born with. It's just something that we unlearn because of life. And so now it's kind of deep. You can't learn how to adapt to change because it's something that we naturally go through with change. We're just not aware of it. It's like we have forgotten. And so what we're needing to do right now is to remember how to flow through change.
Right.
And I believe that's what the 6 stages of transformation are.
Right.
I happen to put a framework around it, but it's still the process in which we go through, whether you choose it or it just shows up unexpectedly. You may go through the process quicker if you choose it, because you have more awareness.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Whew. These conversations, I'm telling you, they are intense. We hope you've enjoyed the experience as well.
Yeah. We love to hear your comments, because they help us better understand where you are and what you're enjoying and what your triumphs and your trials are. That makes a big difference to us. And when you do things like and subscribe, it helps other people. It helps us get to other people so that they can get our message and our videos too. So we really appreciate you being the the wind beneath our wings.
Yes, well said.
Mm.
Until next time, just be your best self.
And remember, head up, eyes forward, don't look back.
We've got this.
We've totally got this. Bye, girlfriend. Love you. Bye. All right, here we go. Give it a try.
I believe in you.
Are you casting a spell on me? I felt that. Did my hair blow? Damn, you probably got all the candles on the birthday cake, didn't you? Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh,
but yeah, that's change is very fascinating to me.
interesting.
I wish I wasn't so fascinated with it though, because I think I manifest more of it. It's like, damn, it's showing up again. Hey.
Here it is again. A change, my old friend.
Back in the realized stage.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. You ran through your E's. You ran through your Re's.
With ease. And you pretty please. Oh, you're
cheese.
Cheese.
Cheese. Cheese.
Oh, I thought you said split cheese. You're taking this to a whole new level.
No, you took it to a whole new level, not me. What are you saying?
I said, ooh, I might have to sneeze. I'm sorry. I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
You're so silly. Are you really going to need to sneeze?
No.
Oh, you were just lying?
I was rhyming.
I know, I'm teasing you. Here we go. Let's take a ride. Namaste.
Namaste.
Yes.